The Salon is a dedicated program that documents, shares, and captures the Black hair experience through stories and businesses around the D.C. area in order to archive its rich history, never to be forgotten.
The hair industry is huge, but not enough people know about the importance of hair in Black history and culture.
Being here, sharing hair journeys with one another, we are able to understand that having beautiful hair is about loving your hair.
My name is Alia Bundles, and I am named after my great-grandmother, who was the daughter of Madame C.J. Walker. And my name has kind of an unusual spelling, so it's A', capital L, E-L-I-A. When I was in graduate school at Columbia in journalism, my mother had been diagnosed with lung cancer, and she had a terminal illness. And at the same time, my advisor at Columbia was a Black woman named Phyllis Garland, the only Black woman on the faculty. And I met with her to talk about the topic that I was going to write about for my master's project. At the end of the conversation, Phil Garland said to me, "Your name is Alia. Do you have any connection to Madam Walker and Alia Walker?" I said, "Yeah, that's my family." And she said, "That's what you're going to write about." And I'm so incredibly grateful, first of all, that Phil was the only Black woman on the faculty, because nobody else would have recognized that weird name with the A', capital L, but that Phil really validated this story for me, this story that I was somewhat ambivalent about. You know, as a kid, you don't want to be different from everybody else. You want to fit in. You want to, not have somebody say, "Oh, you think you're this or that." But Phil made me understand how important it was to tell that story. And now 40 years later, I tell that story, and I tell it in a way that I hope inspires other people. So how did Madam Walker change the hair care industry? Madam Walker truly was a pioneer of the modern hair care industry, and she was not the only person at the time who was making products for Black women. There had been people who'd been making products even before she did in 1906, but she was a genius about marketing and about promotion, and so she created a national and an international business with customers all over the United States, Central America, and the Caribbean. So she revolutionized it because she trained women. She was an educator as well as an entrepreneur, and she built an army of sales agents, training thousands of women who were sales agents. As she traveled around from city to city, she would hold a big meeting and invite people not just to come hear about hair, but she would talk to them about what was going on at Black schools and what was happening in the news. And she actually, just like we have PowerPoint now, she had what was called a stereopticon, glass slides that she showed in a projector. So when she came to town, before there was television and radio and movies in a lot of towns, she was the entertainment. So she knew how to draw a crowd, and she would generate interest. And then she would meet with a core group of women who thought they wanted to become Walker agents. So maybe 10 or 12 women in a room, and she would demonstrate her hair care system, and she would see who asked questions, who asked the best questions, who was really curious, who had some confidence. And she was very good at picking leaders. And so by the time she was ready to leave a town, she had identified the woman in the audience who others gravitated towards, who she knew was a natural leader. And that person then became her lead agent. And that happened over and over, dozens and dozens of times. So she was developing this large body of women, so that by the time she had her convention in 1917, there were more than 200 women who came together in Philadelphia. So she was creating a business She was having to teach people how to use this product because it was something new. And then she was teaching the women how to be leaders. And some of that leadership, in the same way that she said, I want others to look at us and realize that we care not just about ourselves, but about others, that actually had an impact on the civil rights movement. So you've heard of the March on Washington, the 1963 March on Washington, where Martin Luther King made his speech. Well, a lot of the buses that brought people from all over the country were paid for by Black beauticians. When they had their national conventions every year, the National Beauty Culturist League, Martin Luther King spoke at their conventions. One of their presidents was on the board of the SCLC. So these were women who, in their beauty shops, because they owned their own businesses, could gather civil rights meetings. When the churches became targets of violence, these Black women owned their beauty shops. So these women were a force in civil rights. So I think the seeds that Madam Walker planted, first by helping women have products that work for them, helping women have independent incomes, and telling women that they needed to use that money to make a difference in their community, translated into their involvement in the civil rights movement, as well as a number of people who have told me through the years, my mother, my grandmother, my aunt had a beauty shop on the main street or had a beauty shop in the basement. And that money allowed her to buy a house. And that money allowed her to pay my tuition to college. And that money allowed her to invest in real estate. So I can see that this independent income has affected generations of African American families. So it's very important to document our stories, because 100 years from now, if you don't have a piece of paper or a digital record, then you basically don't exist. But I know that in writing the books that I write, that I am able to use documents that show all of our accomplishments. And if you don't have a record of it, people tell you don't have any history. So it's really important. I mean, it breaks my heart when somebody says, "Oh, who cares about grandma's, papers? Who cares about those scrapbooks? Let's get rid of them. They're taking up space." But that is a family's history. And the things I have, even free papers from some of my great-great-grandparents that show when they were emancipated from slavery. I have records that show the contributions that members of my family made. I have letters that describe what was going on when my mother was at Howard or when she was in boarding school. So it's so important, I think, to be able to tell your family history so that generations from now, someone will understand that if they aren't the first ones to do something, that there are members of their family who have made accomplishments for generations. And the people don't have to be famous. I happen to have a couple of famous people in my family, but I'm just as proud of the people who just worked hard and who made contributions, who took care of their families, who made sure that their kids got to go to college, who sacrificed so that the next generation could have it a little bit easier. So I think it's so important to document our family history and to document the history of Black women, because we need to make sure that people understand just who we are.
The Salon Hair Stories, Ari, scene 3, take 2.
I remember the first time I got braids, it hurt really bad and took about 6 hours. And so I was kind of wondering why anyone would even bother getting this hairstyle if it's so painful. But after wearing them for about 2 months, I kind of understood, because it made my life so much easier. It really changed the way that I thought about my hair, because I didn't have to wake up every morning and think about styling it. I didn't have to worry about whether I was gonna press it or have it natural or whatever style that I was thinking about having. Braids were just a hairstyle that I could wake up and already have my hair ready to go. And so I'm taking a break from them right now, but I plan to get them back very soon. And I'm really excited to go back to the freedom that braids give me.
Well, I'm a DC native, born and raised in Northwest Washington. And I have owned a hair salon in DC, in the hair business now for 40 years. So I worked for one location called Natural Motions for 18 years, and the remaining years I've had my own salon. As a young girl, it was a passion for me, and I had 3 younger sisters, so they had to suffer consequences of getting it done. But I was playing with hair, selling it, and I grew such a passion for it. So, and later in life, I just went out and pursued what I really wanted to do, and I became a hairdresser. And I stayed in the business for 18 years in that promotion, and the highest paid stylist there for over 8 years. And then I decided, well, what's next? What's next? So my next adventure was to open my own hair salon. And after a year of that, building architects and build outs, I was in business. Change in DC happened, and well, most times when new development comes and new buildings are going to be built, and the rents are going to be enormous, they don't think that you qualify to come back or to be successful. I have enough money to be successful, but that's not true. Because we're back and we are very successful where we are and what we do. And so to put our place back in the community, it shows strength. It shows that whatever you put your mind to, that you can do it, you can be. And today I am the best business and on the block and the best business in Charlotte. And so you don't never let nobody tell you change. You can't.
In your childhood, what was your relationship with your hair?
That's a really great question. Because we all have a hair journey. Every woman has a hair journey, every girl has a hair journey, and Black girls have our own special hair journey.
Me and my hair has been through the inside out. I don't even everything. At night, 2 o'clock in the morning, your mother trying to finish your hair because you got school or something the next day. Then went to the Dominicans, then got the blowout. The worst decision of life. The worst. That blowout put bald spots in my hair. To this day, I still have a bald spot. And I used to be able to wear my hair out. I used to be natural. I used to be able to have to wear the big old bush, you got it out. You just blow dry it out, you leave it alone, you got the afro, it's out like that. I used to do that, but after I went to Dominicans and got the blowout and I got the spot and all that, I started wearing my hair out, and then it went from being natural out to perm and messed up to having to wear protective styles. You rarely see me with my hair out now. All I had was protective styles. Yeah, protective styles.
This is so new to me.
Exactly. I know. I like my hair, but I don't like to deal with my hair. And my hair has been through a lot, and I want to protect it. It's my baby. I gotta keep it safe and protected. So, yeah, that's my hair story. Like, that's my hair.